You're listening to Best Revers, a podcast for kindred spirits, a podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Alysa Lucas, and it feels like I've been locked in a chamber of secrets.
Yep.
Tom Riddle took my SD card.
That's what we're going to say.
Yeah, that's the story I'm going with. So this is take 2 of recording of the second episode in the series of the Harry Potter books. And today, my friend Crystal is here.
Yay! Hi!
You might remember Crystal from such episodes as Marie Antoinette in her Ride or Dies, and then Ella Fitzgerald and Marilyn Monroe. Yep. And then you've also been on Fatalities.
I have been on Fatalities, yes.
She has ideas that she's told me about years ago, and then a pandemic happened, and we haven't made it work. So, cults and other stuff.
I'm ready for all of those. But Harry Potter's good.
Yeah.
I'm an open book, literally.
She's ready to go. So it's so good to have you back. And so tell me, Crystal, how did you come about reading the Harry Potter series? Like, how old were you? How did you read it? Like, meaning, like, obviously I know how you read it, but like...
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is a good story. I was in college. I think it was my senior year victory lap, that last little bit you had to get through. And my friend Jackie, who I was living with, probably my best friend in college, she goes, you need to read these Harry Potter books because, you're going to an education. All the kids are reading it. And I'm like, no, I'm too grown. I was like, I am too grown up to read these things. So we made a bet. I told her I'd read all the Harry Potter books up to that point. So I think it was like book 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And she had to watch all the Matrix movies. Now, I thought that was a good deal because Matrix movies were only so long. I had to read a whole, series.
Yeah.
Right?
There's 3 matrices. Is that what you call it? Matrixes? I don't know.
A new one's coming out.
Yeah, so does she have to watch that?
I should make her, but I think she fell asleep during the first one, there's just a rift between us. So I started reading it. Yeah. And I said, well, it's probably good for I am going into secondary education and the kids will relate. I got through the first book and I was like, well, this is cool. And then I read the second book and I still didn't want to admit to myself that I was an HP fan.
You're a Potterhead.
I'm a Potterhead. And I think it was the third book that sealed the deal for me.
Oh, yeah, Azkaban.
Yeah. And I finally was like, this is it. So now, I have been to PotterCon with you.
Yeah, we went together, and you went as Rita
Skeeter.
Yeah.
And I went as that, and I've dressed up for the opening when the 7th book came out. We went
nerd.
Oh, total nerd. And my cat is named Dobby.
That's why so when I was getting this together, I was like, well, Crystal is obviously doing book 2.
Makes sense. Yes. I was all about it. I'm just into it. My house, if you will.
Yes. Yeah. Tell us.
Is technically Slytherin.
Oh, I feel like you're thinking there's some stigma attached. Well, especially in this book. This book. Draco.
Right. I mean, the douchebaggery that is that house.
Yeah.
So
you could do great things, though, Crystal.
Well, I'm ambitious. That's my problem. That's why I'm in that house.
Or maybe that's a good thing, and that's what the Sorting Hat was telling Harry, is that there are some good things about it.
Exactly.
I mean, there isn't all good things about Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, or Ravenclaw. We just don't dive into those ideas.
We don't. No.
I wonder if there's fan fiction out there. Okay, hardcore Harry Potter fans, is there any fan stories that get into Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs and Slytherins and maybe the dark side? We should do a dark side of the houses.
I bet you there is some maybe fan fiction of the bad Gryffindors or the good Slytherins or you know what I mean, the opposite.
I feel like there would probably be no bad Hufflepuffs. They're friendship. That's me. So how are we friends if you're Slytherin and I'm a Puff?
I think it's because that's what my I did all the quizzes and everything, and I keep coming up with that one, and I'm wishing, Harry, please put me in Gryffindor.
Yeah.
So I think I relate more to Gryffindor in a lot of things, and not so much, but because of how I, of course, answer
Yes,
all the
yes,
things.
yeah.
That, and I can't remember what my what is it called?
Patronus.
Yeah, I can't remember what my Patronus
Mine
is. But
was an anteater, and I was very upset about it.
you're like,
I was like, what? We're already an aardvark and
Like,
this and that. I was like, come on.
give me something. Give me
Yeah, I need to find the video. There was, I went to this communication conference with my good friend Tara, who's been on the podcast before, and she was preparing for a presentation, and I was trying to get a better Patronus.
Listen,
that is highly accurate.
I think that's fitting. I think that's both equally as good.
Yeah.
You know, like we have to figure out these things. We have to know ourselves before we can.
Bring it all to me. The quizzes. I mean,
Yes.
I had like Kate, who's been on the podcast, do it. She doesn't even read or watch the Harry Potters, but like figuring out her house. But I'm like, bring me the love languages, the Enneagrams, all the stuff. I find that stuff interesting to know a little bit more. Right. And, you know, I joke like, okay, Draco, but there are good things about Slytherin. And like you said, it's also like, what house might we resonate with? And I think because Harry, Hermione, and Ron are in Gryffindor, I wonder if we all resonate with them just a little bit, because that's the focus. Like if this was a Draco story, I mean, maybe not. But if this was a Cedric Diggory story, you know, maybe we'd be like, Hufflepuff.
Well, I wonder if it was just any other house, too. Because you don't, I mean, you do get a good glimpse, I think, later on of the other houses a little bit with the history, but not, you know, it's really the Gryffindor. But yeah, that's my claim to fame. It was a bet, basically.
Well, I can't wait to see how this bet unfolds, and I'm going to write a little note in my calendar for when The Matrix comes out to see if you get your friend. Maybe we could go see it together because I'm into it. And then you have to, I don't know where she lives.
Washington State.
Okay, so then you're not going to probably see it together.
Probably not.
But see if she might be interested in doing it.
Right.
And say, like, it's time for you to complete your side of the bet.
Right, because I've really done it.
I mean, let's be real. I feel like Keanu Reeves is aging like some fine wine. So I might rather see this one than the ones that came out before.
Well, and to be fair, the reason I love The Matrix is because of him.
Yeah.
And I still find him very attractive. Like, he's probably the... You know, we all have that cheat celebrity. Yeah, that's yours.
That's my guy. That's your laminated, like, from Friends.
Oh, yeah. That's it.
Okay, well, since we're doing it and everyone at home, stick with us, humor us for a second. Oh, yeah. What house do you think Keanu Reeves would be in?
Ooh.
The person.
The person.
Now, we would have to do, like, John Wick, and then we have to go, you know, and do all that, Neo, and, you know, so on and so forth.
I think just what I know... And of course, it's probably skewed with social media. But what I would know, I would have to say probably Hufflepuff.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
He just seems like
chill.
Cool and chill. And, you know, maybe there's a little, you know, we could even explore maybe the Ravenclaw aspect and not needing to have like the fame that Slytherin. I mean, he's famous, but he has a partner, a private life and things like that, but he still comes, like, just showing up at people's weddings and the love for dogs even in John Wick and just his part in Always Be My Maybe. Was that the name of that Netflix movie? And he was in it. He was the best part of it.
He was.
I mean, the movie was super cute. Yeah. But I about died when he was on screen. So yeah, let us know what you think. Do you think Keanu Reeves fits into Hufflepuff? And also, who's your cheat celebrity? Yes. I think that's an important question.
I love that. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah. And I'm like, who would be my cheat celebrity? I mean, usually it's probably like this weird combination of like Leonardo, like more than one, not a weird combination. Right. It's not like Leo DiCaprio's head and like Idris Elba's body and David Beckham's
abs.
Or I was gonna say feet, like soccer.
Oh yeah, that's true.
No, footy. But those are the three that I like the most. There's probably more because I'm always like, oh, I love that. Or like I'll see a preview and then I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see that because so and so's in it. But before we get into the story, you know, is that life has been really hectic and, you know, the SD card that was, you know, just gone.
Right. It's all good.
And just like the schedule and things are busy, but you know, the things that make it better are the animals. And right now I am appeasing Finn by petting him constantly because Crystal is the first person to be in person recording with me since the pre-pandemic. Yeah. But I also know that you have a little buddy.
I do.
And so tell us about Dobby. Because this is also why I was like, Crystal's doing book number 2 because she's got a Dobby herself.
I do. I love my little kitty. So yeah, Dobby is a cat, black cat. Mm-hmm. Important to note. Who showed up on my coworker's deck.
Hello.
Right.
Dobby's here.
Exactly. Like, it's the cutest little kitten, you know? And I never wanted a cat.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be the single woman with a cat.
What are you trying to say, Crystal?
Nothing wrong. Total respect.
I got 2, but I also have the dog, so that's what makes it okay, right?
So, you know, socially acceptable, I guess, is the way to look at it. So Dobby shows up, and it was the summer of the 20th anniversary of Harry Potter.
What? Are you kidding? That's crazy.
So when I was looking at names, because you and Sarah, our mutual friend Sarah, was helping me with names, and Dobby actually has an extra toe on each paw. Yeah. So, you know, I didn't want it, but I didn't want that to define her. You know,
you're like baseball names because those look like some baseball gloves coming at you.
Exactly, right. And so I was like, well, what can I do? So she loved, as a kitten, to... so I ended up adopting her. Yeah.
And spoiler alert.
Right. And she loved to be in my bathroom where my washer and dryer were. Mm-hmm. I think it's the smell. There's probably a lot of things in the air, you know. And it made me think of the lone sock. Yeah. And, you know, Harry Potter 20th anniversary. And I'm like, what? And then finally it was like, Dobby.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the Dobby situation here, which is in the Chamber of Secrets. And so, of course, as we start, per usual, we love the Harry Potter culture, but just not the author.
Right.
And what we're doing here is episodes for fans of Harry Potter and friendship because we're the ones who made the culture what it is today. Right. Yes. So just a little friendly reminder of where we stand as a podcast. Correct. And so this is the second book. And so we're getting into Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Right? Yes. So I'm going to do a little description of the book.
Yes.
Correct me, add in, do whatever you need to do. Like, I don't think so. But here we go. So Harry has been sent home after his first year at Hogwarts to live with the Dursleys again. And he's been counting the moments until he can return to Hogwarts. But he hasn't heard from any of his friends over the summer. Mm-hmm. Even more, a house elf named Dobby comes to warn Harry not to return to his beloved school. And that's just one of the several mishaps that occurs to Harry as he tries to get to Hogwarts and then throughout the school year. But Hogwarts has bigger issues than Harry's mishaps, if you will. Mm-hmm. There's a threat, and it seems that it's against those who are part Muggle, or as Draco Malfoy say, those with mug blood. Mm. It's so rude. Like this pure blood, I'm like, it's so like... there's just some inklings of historical stuff here. Yep. But someone has reopened the Chamber of Secrets. I didn't even know this existed in Hogwarts, but then again, Hogwarts has so many things that I don't even think like Dumbledore or the ghosts know about.
Probably not.
So it's said to have been opened by the heir of Slytherin, Crystal.
That wasn't me. I didn't do it.
And not only is it possible for the school to be shut down, but maybe another student might die. In this book, the hunt is on to stop the series of events where students have been petrified, and that takes them back 50 years to when the Chamber of Secrets was originally opened. And unfortunately, Harry is seen as the potential heir who has opened the Chamber of Secrets because he speaks Parseltongue, which, is like snake talk.
Right.
And that's what the heir of Slytherin probably does.
Yeah.
Because of Slytherin. Yeah. Everyone's with us. Harry finds himself with the same struggles of school and Draco and Snape, as well as all the good stuff like friends and Quidditch. Yes. But this year he also has to deal with Draco's dad, probably the worst offense against the dark arts teacher in Gilderoy Lockhart, crying ghosts in a bathroom, and some extreme crushes and interest from his quote-unquote fans. Maybe he should have just stayed home with the Dursleys.
Well,
no,
geez.
No, that's
a hard place. Yeah,
like, no. So, how do you think? Do you think I did the book justice? Thank you.
Yeah.
This is why we're friends.
That's right.
So what, of course, we want to talk about is there is a story here.
Yeah.
And there is some danger. And of course, as we know in the first book, there was danger and the he who should not be named. And that Harry came up aces at the end. And, everything was good to go. And so similar storylines in these books where there's trouble at Hogwarts. And I'm like, how is the school not shut down hundreds of years ago?
A house or a school that is ran by these powerful, like,
wizards and witches. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, the security there just lackluster.
Yeah, and then it gets real bad in the next book when we bring in the Dementors, and it's like, oh my good gosh, like something is happening there. Like, we need to do one of those assessments. Yeah. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Sneakers with Robert Redford.
Oh yeah,
it's one of my favorite movies, as River Phoenix and Dan Aykroyd and Sidney Poitier and just so many amazing people. And basically the group does these things where they go in and they try to rob a bank.
Oh, yes.
We need Robert Redford's Sneakers team to go in there
and find all the loopholes.
All the loopholes. Yes. All the loopholes. But here on this podcast, of course, we want to talk about the friendship. So let's talk about the first section of topics that I like to talk about is sort of thinking about making a new friend and being back with the Dursleys. So, he's back there. They're sort of scared of him because they don't realize he can't do magic. And so anytime he does anything, they're like, ugh. So he even says, they treat me like a bomb that's about to blow up. Right. And on page 6, this is basically what he says. I'll be in my bedroom making no noise and pretending I'm not there. That's in response to having a guest, but I kind of feel like that's his existence.
Absolutely. I mean, well, you saw some of that in the first book.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then now it's not so much like annoyance like the first book, I felt like, of like he's there. But now it's like, no, we're also annoyed that he's there, but he's also now scary.
Yeah. And as he ages and becomes a more powerful wizard, or like learns things, because at this point, was he like 12? Like, like calm down. Right? He can't even turn. What are they trying to do in like the first book? He can't even, change a rat into a cup, or was that?
Yeah, or
that
turn the light on with his wand or something. There's some basic level.
He can't even fix his broken glasses, y'all. Like, but they don't know. They don't know. But, and the thing that's really, I think, hurtful this time is the previous summer, Harry had no friends. And in fact, he was being bullied by his cousin Dudley and his, gang of misfits or whatever.
Yeah.
But now he does have friends. Right. And it's the summer break and he hasn't heard anything from anyone. And it's his birthday. And so Dudley, this guy, him and Draco could be buddies, I'll tell you what. So he comes up to Harry and says he knows it's his birthday. And so on page 9, he goes, quote, how come you haven't gotten any cards? Haven't you even friends at the freak place? Harry pretends to do magic and Dudley freaks out.
Yeah.
And so the idea is like he knows that he has some friends, or he's making fun of the fact that he doesn't have friends. So I think Harry is starting to have doubts that maybe these aren't real friendships, or that these people don't care about him, which I think if he was back at Hogwarts with him, he wouldn't have those doubts. Or if he was getting letters in the mail, the mail. Yeah. Owl mail.
Right.
And I think he wouldn't have these doubts, but I think all of his fears and insecurities are often located in that Dursley house. And so it's like when you feel lonely and then you're in the loneliest place you can be, he's going to feel that way. Yeah. So he's feeling down. Yep. He doesn't understand what's going on. And then he makes a new friend.
Yes.
Dobby.
Yes.
So what was your first thought of Dobby? Is Dobby friend or foe?
So reading the books initially.
Yes.
I had a whole different kind of vision, I think, of Dobby.
And then the movie came out and you were like, say what now?
Exactly. Very
controversial.
Yeah, like people are all over the map with that. But I think when you read book 1 and you're reading book 2 and you're like, is a lot of questions, but there's always kind of new characters emerging. So you didn't know, like, well, what is this kind of creature or person? And then, of course, the news that this Dobby brings, you're like, well, do I trust that? What is it? Is it, like you said earlier, friend, foe? He's all new to this whole world.
Yeah, Harry's never met a house elf.
Right.
And so one of the things is that, and this is the description of Dobby on page 12, quote, "The little creature on the bed had large bat-like ears and bulging green eyes the size of tennis balls," end quote. And then on top of it, like, I think Harry might be a little welcoming to something that might be magical because he hasn't seen the entire magical world. And as long as he doesn't feel like, it's almost like Dobby's more annoying than dangerous. But it says, "Dobby the elf is so eager to meet Mr. Harry Potter. When Harry asks why he's there, Dobby has big cries. He's just like, oh, Harry Potter," right? Which is not conducive to being quiet when the Dursleys are having guests, right? So he starts hitting his head, and he can't believe that Harry Potter has treated him like an equal. Yeah. But the message that he brings, he tells on page 16, quote, "But Dobby has come to protect Harry Potter, to warn him, even if he does have to shut his ears in the oven door later," because he snuck out on his family to warn Harry Potter. Because he isn't a house elf to the Dursleys or Harry. We don't know at this point. Right. He says, "Harry Potter must not go back to Hogwarts," end quote. And Harry's like, hogwash. Right. If I'm going to be anywhere, it's not going to be with the Dursleys. Yes. Like, if Dumbledore let him be somewhere else during the summer, he'd be there in 2 seconds. Yeah. And so I think at first it just becomes a little bit of a dangerous situation for his living situation with the Dursleys because he's going to create bigger problems, and what's his uncle going to do and that sort of thing. True.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of it is when you think about it, and I'm going to bring maybe the movies in here too, but they do a good job of, like, he is a little anxious. Like, this thing's in here is going to make noise and get me in trouble. But then I think it does come into, like, well, why can't I not go back? And like, what is this thing? And all the kind of feelings with that. And of course, then he's not getting any messages. Yeah, so he doesn't know really what's happening. Maybe not so much Hogwarts even, but the wizarding world.
Yeah, itself. He has no idea.
Yeah. So there's still, in true, HP fashion, mystery. Yes. At what this means. Yeah.
And because we're talking about the friendships and what these new meetings might mean, so we'll kind of skip ahead on the story, if you will. And Harry Potter, learns later that it was Dobby who was stopping the letters from coming. Like, so he was Dobby's trying to do anything to get Harry not to go back to Hogwarts, including cutting him off from his friends. And it's like, so does that make him a good friend because he's protecting them because there's some danger? Like, he knows of a plan to take place at Hogwarts that might impact Harry Potter. And so he doesn't want him to go back to school. So in some ways, like, they haven't even met, but he's already interested in protecting him, which makes me kind of think of, we were talking about celebrities before that Harry, and we talked about this in episode number 1, is that my friend Alysa and I, we talked about that, there's this whole fame and notoriety around Harry Potter, which he doesn't want anything to do with. Right. But there's some level of almost like parasocial relationships, like one-sided friendships or interest or care towards Harry, even though they haven't met him, because he has fought Voldemort, right? And he won. And so there, I think there's this level of like this celebrity fandom that comes, and I think that's a little bit of what Dobby has. And I think it's good intention, but they don't have a relationship yet. So it's like, what is this creature? And you know what? Whatever danger, I imagine what Harry's thinking at that point is, whatever danger is at Hogwarts, Dumbledore is there.
Right. Oh yeah, going back to the protection that Dumbledore.
But apparently not enough, because we need that sneakers team to get in there and do an assessment on the...
How did you not know? Yeah.
Especially by book 3.
Right. Oh, gosh. For sure.
So he does make kind of a new friend, if you will. Yeah. And then maybe, he's not quite sure yet. I think that as we conclude and we can bring Dobby back into it, that I think that their friendship becomes solidified by the end of this book.
Yeah.
So it is like, does Harry have friends? Well, he's got some bat ear-like creature with green tennis ball eyes
looking after him, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. If I was thinking of all of the creatures or wizards or witches that could protect me in that world, that's
not who I would have picked.
Probably not who I would have picked.
No.
But so the question is, does Harry Potter even have friends? Yes, he does. Harry still's got friends, and he still has some enemies. So how like once we discover that, hey, they do have friends, how would you describe the friendship of the three? So Harry, Hermione, and Ron in the book. Like, so is it similar? Is it different? And I have some of the beginning stuff, so I can share that and we can kind of talk about if their friendship is the same or if anything has grown. So what ends up happening is that the twins, the Weasley twins and Ron, come in a enchanted car flying through the air, and then everything else they do is they use non-magic to essentially break Harry out. And they do it by the skin of their teeth, so to speak, because the uncle gets in there and is like grabbing at Harry to get him back in there, but he has everything and he's like, we do have friends, right? Yeah. So they come and break them out. And they do it in the middle of the night. And they land at the Burrow, which is the Weasley home.
Which I love. I love that home.
It. Yeah. Yes. In fact, Harry says on page 41, this is the best house I've ever been in. Yeah. So they come in and... Here we go. Mrs. Weasley, page 33. Bed's empty. No note. Car gone.
I love it.
Could have crashed out of my mind with worry. Did you care? Never. As long as I lived. Wait until your father gets home. Yeah. We never had trouble like this from Bill or Charlie or Percy. And then Fred's like, perfect, Percy. You could do with taking a leaf out of Percy's book.
I love her.
So you have these three great eldest sons, right? Perfect children.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have these hilarious twins.
Which is funny in later books.
Yeah.
How the best sons.
Yeah. Maybe not so much. Yeah.
And how much trouble that needed to happen.
Yeah.
From the Weasleys to help with things. So, but I think it's so funny.
Well, this is the first time we're coming into like the Weasley house and that sort of thing. And so they come into the Burrow. And so, but the best part is, so the mom does all the yelling at the boys. And then that includes the twins and then Ron. And then of course there's Ginny, who will now be going to Hogwarts. But as she does the big yell, she turns to Harry and, not yelling, I'm very pleased to see you, Harry, dear. Come in and have some breakfast. Right?
Yes, she does.
So welcoming and just, at a certain point, I think that the juxtaposition between the Burrow and then the Dursley home. So Harry says on page 65, it's hard not to be jealous of Ron when considering,
Yeah.
And he says jealous, and I want to be like, Harry, you mean envy, but I mean
that age group. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah. He doesn't know yet. And so one of the things is that I think that you see this level of excitement that like his friends, Ron and the twins have come to break him out, that he's so welcomed. And when the dad arrives, he's so excited to talk to Harry about the Muggle world because that's his job at the ministry. And I think he just feels at home. And it's like, I never really understood why, other than maybe some level of, I just don't see how the Dursleys can protect him per se, right? And maybe we don't have a full understanding of it right now in book 2. I'm like, why can't he just go to the Burrow, right?
Yeah.
And so everything's good with Ron, right? Like, so they broke him out.
Yep.
They're chilling, hanging out, doing stuff around the Burrow.
Yep.
And then Hermione writes a letter. And this is on page 45. Dear Ron and Harry, if you're there.
She's hoping. Yep.
So I hope everything went all right and that Harry is okay and that you didn't do anything illegal to get him out. Hermione, always concerned.
Yes.
Ron, because this would get Harry into trouble too. I've been really worried, and if Harry is all right, will you please let me know at once? But perhaps it would be better if you send a different owl because I think another delivery might finish your one off. I'm very busy with schoolwork, of course, and then yada, yada, yada. He's like, it's vacation. Why is she studying?
Right.
He says, let me know what's happening as soon as you can. Love from Hermione. So they are concerned, and so they're probably thinking, why is he not responding to our messages, right?
Right.
And later we also learned that Hagrid sent some stuff and didn't hear back from Harry either. So it seemed like they were all concerned, and so that's what led to Ron breaking them out and Hermione being concerned that whether or not it was legal.
Yeah.
And they didn't use magic because under a certain age you can't. So...
Yep.
And they didn't want it. The only thing was, the flying car is obviously a thing.
Right.
So that's, so we're good here, right? So in terms of, we're back to, the band is back together.
Yes.
So to speak, Hermione comes, they spend the last, month or so together before going to Hogwarts. Mm-hmm. So do you see much change in their relationship in this book, do you think?
Overall, you think? In the book?
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the biggest thing I noticed with their friendship is the fame of Harry.
Yeah.
And how that is going to be a thing they will have to deal with as a 3-group friend network. I think, and that leads perfectly into when you get to book 3 and how things play out there. But this is the first time that it really infiltrated their friendship.
Well, and in a way it's not just people fawning all over him.
Right.
They start to believe that he's opened the Chamber of Secrets. So now they're dealing with a lot of backlash, right? And so
trust issues almost. Yeah.
And so but also it's like, even if they're like, Harry didn't open the Chamber of Secrets, or them just being flabbergasted that he can speak Parseltongue because it's so rare. And truly the only other person that is known to do it is Voldemort, right? And so he must have got that rare power from whatever happened when they battled, battled, because it was like he was a baby.
Yeah, he just sat there.
He was just like goo goo gaga.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But I think in here what you see is that they are friends, and that I think Hermione's more relaxed. I mean, I say
in her way,
because I don't think will ever be 100% relaxed. And that's okay. But I think that's who she is, and she brings balance to the two of them. The 3 of them balance each other out. So they have to deal with the fame. I think that is going to be more difficult for Ron to deal with, as we'll see through the books, because there might be a direct competition between them in some sense, or that the things he'd like to do, Harry's already doing, like Quidditch and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think they just go back to it, and but the start of it though is Dobby said don't go back to Hogwarts, and they can't get on the train. The 9 3/4 is closed, and so they're like, how are we gonna get there? And they're like, let's take the flying car.
We used it before. Let's do it again. Which is so 12-year-old.
Such a bad idea.
But 12-year-old boys. We had access to this before. Right. Problem solved. Nope. One more thing on the fame thing I would say though is I think it starts to morph a little bit towards the end of the book, where they're not so much envious of his fame or that, but it then turns into the fear.
Yeah.
That he has this focus on him.
Yeah.
Constantly. And I would imagine it's not really brought up in the book, but if you were to ask Ron or Hermione, there might be a level of concern for their well-being. Yeah, because they're his friends, and I think they're at a certain point, and maybe that's something as I go through with each guest and people are reading through the series, is keeping our eye on the point when they've accepted that they're going to be in danger's way. Right. Because Harry is that important to him. They don't want anything to happen to him. Right. And so even Hermione's like, you two are idiots for taking the car. Oh, yeah. And they get in so much trouble. They don't get expelled, to, of course, Snape's dismay. Oh, right. And Hermione doesn't even want to talk to them until
like they've sort of, dealt with it and
Yeah.
been punished in some way. She's
Right.
like, anyway. But
Yeah.
but I think you're right. Like there's a certain point where it's like, do you be friends with someone and it could lead to your demise in some way? Or is that something that you're going to say, no, I need to protect myself,
I would say it was probably book maybe 4. You think 5?
I might be 5. I haven't reread the
Yeah.
entire series in a while, so this is a good fun
yeah.
like reread as it going along. So
Yeah.
okay, so you say 4, I say
Yeah.
5. Fans at home, you let us know when you
Yes.
think it is, and then I'll be
Yes.
sure to touch on that with the guests for book 3 and book 4 and book 5 and book 6. I think they're far gone by 6 and 7. Like they
for
know,
6 and 7, they know for
they
sure.
know for sure.
They're in the mix.
They're
Yeah.
in the mix. It gets super serious, right? And for me, I think book 5 changes everything. Because Goblet of Fire is so different with the tournament, but you can see a real sense of danger because that's when Voldemort comes back. Okay, we're getting way ahead.
Yeah, we got to focus on book 2. Okay.
Chamber of
Secrets,
Secrets.
yes.
Let's do this. We're so excited about
I know,
Harry Potter.
I love
It's
Harry
like,
Potter.
what about?
What's this theory? No,
What's this about? Maybe we could just do a general theory-based
Yeah.
episode later.
I have a whole thing on Snape.
I
love him.
I'll bring you back.
Yeah.
We need to talk more about this. So then, yeah, he's definitely still got friends, but he also has enemies. So before they even take the car back to Hogwarts, like, that obviously was a lot of fun and an adventure for friends that I think solidifies and bonds them, and then they're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
But also there's the moments of dealing with Draco. And so when he's at the Burrow with the Weasleys, they use flu powder to get to Diagon Alley, but Harry doesn't do it right, and he lands into it's his first time.
I know.
It seems very complicated.
It does, but geez.
Yeah, he ends up like in this dusty, crusty, shady, store, and he overhears, Draco whining about not being on the Quidditch team and that his dad needed to buy him something. And he's just, Draco being Draco and, being mad that he doesn't have things and being mad that Harry has things. And, there's a lot of envy there for sure. Draco toward Harry.
Yeah.
And he also, we are then introduced to Lucius, who's Jason Isaacs in the movie.
I know.
Yeah. He has beautiful eyes.
Yes.
But we meet him and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
There's definitely a connection.
There's definitely some he got it from his dad, but he is nowhere near what his dad is like. His dad to me is like, from even just that first sense of what he's doing in that store and trying to get rid of things so he doesn't get busted by ministry raids, and just like being someone who has supported Voldemort in the past, that I think we learn more as we go along, but you start to get the word I think of as evil. And like Draco's 12, so he's like a whiny little mean kid, like
a bully.
And maybe, he's all talk and, you see him so often, like in book 1 and in the movie, he gets scared going out into the forest and stuff. He can't back up his talk,
No. But you do, I think, see from that exchange a little, and maybe I'm not, I might be mixing the movie and the book here, but Harry recognizing that he's the dad is kind of an enemy.
Yeah.
You get that sense of like this immediately. And like, oh wait, I have to deal with Draco, but now the dad.
Yeah. Let's add that in.
Right. And like, please, no more. Like, but it does.
But they have these tiffs that continue, and then Harry finally, that will continue, but Harry first has to find the Weasleys, and he runs into Hagrid, who helps him get to the Weasleys. And so basically there is this run-in between Arthur Weasley and then the elder Malfoy, and there's a little scuffle between them, and Ginny is there, and they're getting all their materials, and like her stuff gets thrown around, and they have to be like pulled, taken apart.
And again, that I think bringing up the foreshadowing really, but that idea of who's on what side.
Yeah.
And who's kind of talking about friendship, but really looking at the enemies.
Yeah.
Who are against them and why.
Yeah.
Because you start to unravel the loyalties one way and the loyalties the other.
Yeah.
And again, it's so cool to see it through Harry's perspective, I think, because he doesn't know yet.
Yeah. He's learning everything new, and the Malfoys are very much like, you're either with us or you're against us.
Exactly.
Like, those are the only options. And you wonder if Draco, even if he was a little bit of a bully, if that wasn't his dad, if Harry and Draco could be friends.
I think in a parallel kind of storyline, maybe when they got older.
Yeah.
But I think they actually would, because there is a lot of parallel in terms of him being a Malfoy and the legacy he has to carry on.
The pressure, I can't imagine. So he has, it's not exactly fame, maybe it's being infamous because of being a Malfoy, and there's like this pressure living up to it. It kind of reminds me of the TV show Succession, where it's like they have to like do the family business, and there's a lot of pressure there. That and privilege, but I think that folks who don't have these long-running families, and that strong, like, pure wizard blood, and the pressure that Draco feels to be like his dad and to carry it on. And that really does create this, like, well, this confirms who I'm friends with.
Yes.
And this confirms who I am not friends with.
At such an age.
At 12!
At 12. But if we think about it, like when I was 12, you definitely had the cliques.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of interesting that Harry Potter, looking at the age progression as they start to get older, but especially here, you can relate in a way. You got the popular kids or whatnot, but we start to learn that it's more than just a house. It's more than just a clique here, but there's some real, like, deep-seated things. Yeah,
the legacy, that word legacy really. And sorry, I started thinking of all these other things, and that makes me think of Gossip Girl, like Chuck Bass and his family and carrying on the Bass name. But I'm Chuck Bass, right? Like,
I'm Draco.
I'm Draco Malfoy.
Right. And you're like, but does it matter anything? And that's the other thing that I think they could actually, Draco and Harry could be friends in some way, because Harry didn't know. Yeah. And he probably came in with much more of a wide-eyed, I want to learn everything. Yeah. And I wonder if Draco, if he didn't have that, like, well, you're this.
Yeah, immediately, because he's like, dirty muggblood to Hermione.
Yeah, and it would be like, well, what could he could probably have helped Harry figure out how to navigate things. But that's for y'all to write out there. Yeah. That fan fiction,
Yeah, well, because if you even think about it, when they meet on the train in book 1, and they meet before that and that sort of thing, but we see it in the movie, they meet on the train, but they meet on Diagon Alley. But they don't officially meet, like, my name is, or that sort of thing. But I feel like Draco already got something to prove. And so going into Hogwarts as a first year, he's got he's got something to prove. Yep. And then there's all this sort of fame around Harry. And I just think that in some ways that Draco desperately wants, like, an actual good friend, and not, like, henchman is what Crabbe Goyle, right? Yeah. And so maybe that's a little sad part, is like when you feel like you can't be who you want to be.
Or be friends with who you want to be friends with.
Yeah, because it's Romeo and Juliet, but the friend version.
Right. It's just so interesting. But I do like that like, parallel to when you're that age, everything is simple. Yeah. And yet we know later it's not.
It's much more complicated.
But those two and that whole, and then I just feel like Hermione's in there being like, y'all need to figure this out. Like, she's like,
But she's really hurt by the Muggle comments, right? True. Like, because her parents are both Muggles, but she's a witch. And the thing is, there's just so many, like I was saying at the beginning, there's just like these, historical ties of like, someone is superior or inferior because of who they are. And that's why originally I think a lot of us liked Harry Potter and resonated with it,
Yes.
and why it's so unfortunate that the person who wrote these books has seemed to take a major left turn.
Major left turn.
So this brings us into the next topic, which is I labeled as famous fickle. Why are you so obsessed with me? Sorry.
No, I love it. It's so true.
So there's some new first years, and woo, do they love Harry? And one of them is Miss Ginny Weasley, who, when Harry's at the Burrow, she's even like dropping stuff and tripping over things, and like anytime she sees them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he's Harry says he's glad for lunch, and then he's going to Defense Against the Dark Arts. So it's the first day of school, which has been a lot already. And Colin Creevey, a first year, comes up and asks for a picture with Harry so he can prove that he met him. And then asks him if he'll sign the picture. And of course, Draco is there because when something like that happens, which is absolutely mortifying to Harry, Draco is there.
Always.
And Colin says to Draco, again, why do 11 and 12-year-olds not know this? She's like, Colin's like, you're just jealous. So, of course, they get into it, Ron, Draco, and Harry. And then the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher comes up and asks who's handing out signed photos and then poses for a picture. And I'm like, this guy. And then he tells Harry, it's a little big-headed to be passing out pics at this age, And so... and then Ron jokes, of course, that Colin and Ginny can start a fan club, and Harry's not happy about this. So you see throughout that he's trying to, like, get away from Colin. I don't think he's as bothered by Ginny.
No.
I think he's just, like, maybe because it's Ron's sister, and he knows her a little bit better or whatever, and just, maybe he doesn't realize it's, like, a crush. But Colin, I think, makes him uncomfortable.
Yep.
And so he's like, the kid's got my schedule memorized, and then is out there at the Quidditch field, and that's when the team is practicing and comes up, and then, like, Slytherin comes out, and we see that Draco's the keeper, and they all have the new brooms and all that kind of stuff because of his dad. And there's, like, another scuffle there. And I just think that Harry would be fine if none of that existed.
Absolutely.
But there is someone who lives for it.
Yes.
And his name is Gilderoy Lockhart. And they actually meet him when they go to Diagon Alley, because when they go to get their books, he's signing copies, and he's kind of a dreamboat, according to Mrs. Weasley and
everybody
Ginny.
Loves him. Yeah.
I mean, that would be me if, like, David Beckham came out like, oh my God, fan. But I don't think, I mean... It's not like I know, but David Beckham doesn't seem like quite a narcissist as Lockhart does.
That's the perfect description of him.
He's definitely a narcissist. He's so into being famous and that sort of thing. And at Diagon Alley, certainly he sees Harry and brings Harry up to make it a more public event. But Lockhart seems to think he gave Harry a taste for publicity after meeting him at the bookstore, and that's why he flew the car to Hogwarts. And that's when I'm like, okay, narcissist. So this is from page 91. Harry. I understand. Natural to want a bit more once you've had the first taste, and I blame myself for giving you that because it was bound to go to your head. But see here, young man, you can't start flying cars to try and get yourself noticed. Just calm down, all right? Plenty of time for all that when you're older. Yes. I know what you're thinking. It's all right for him. He's an internationally famous wizard already. But when I was 12, I'd just as much of a nobody as you now. In fact, I say I was even more of a nobody. I mean, a few people have heard of you, haven't they? All that business with the he who must not be named. He glanced at the lightning scar on Harry's forehead. I know. It's not quite as good as winning Which Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award 5 times in a row as I have. But it's a start, Harry. It's a start. This guy, like, delusional, and just like... Almost like he gets mad at Harry because Harry is more famous than he is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hands down.
And hands down, like, he's handsome and I mean, some people might call him charming. He kind of reminds me, and again, here I go to other things.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me a little bit of Jaime from Game of Thrones. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, but a little bit like Jaime's a little bit more dark and
Yeah.
you know.
This one's more polished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kenneth Branagh plays him in the movie.
Yes.
And the only other person I think could have played it would have been Hugh Grant.
Oh, that would have been stellar.
But Kevin Branagh, chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. But one of the things is, I think that these relationships, it's almost as if, Colin wants, but not really wants a friendship. Ginny can't figure out how to do it.
Right.
And Lockhart, it's almost like he's trying to get in there and be like a mentor and help him with his, being famous. But he puts him down a lot because he is superior, right?
Absolutely.
Because he's older and he has all these books and he's done all these things. Come to find out, the only thing he's good at is charms because he has charmed people into thinking he's done these things.
Right.
So he goes to the people, he finds out what they did, and then he with his little wand and he takes it, and we learn pretty fast that he's just pathetic.
Well, yeah. Oh, can't do very much anything besides talk about himself.
Oh God! Well,
And,
you really have to talk when you don't have anything to back it up.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that might be the kind of reason Lockhart also gets with Harry is, can I take something from?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
never thought about
Yeah,
that.
like-
I mean, oh my goodness! At the end, he was gonna let them die in the Chamber of Secrets and say that he saved the day,
Right.
But and as everyone assumes, is that Harry has all these special power. Like, he beat Voldemort. No one else could do that.
Right.
So then he must have something. And I think some of it is maybe a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
And I think it might be being outside the world and having a different view on it.
Yeah.
And then maybe he got some of these powers or abilities from that fight with Voldemort. And he is a wizard, so because his parents both were. So maybe there's some stuff that's passed down. Like, I have some of the personality traits of Jim and Ann,
right. We all have something. Yeah.
We all have something. Right. So I think it's a combination, but I can guarantee you that Harry does not want anything to do with Colin or Lockhart, but would probably give Ginny a break.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is because he's known Ginny
a little bit longer, at least a year.
And it could be also the a younger girl kind of innocence.
Yeah. And he probably hasn't quite picked up on the she has a crush on me.
Exactly. Right. But you kind of have to have Lockhart and this fandom to go against. Harry needs to see that.
Mm-hmm. So he doesn't become it.
Exactly. And he needs to kind of process, I think, in this book and others too, what is he going to do? Everyone kind of has this he's going to be famous, or he's going to do great things, or he's going to do this, but he's still Harry, and he, as we all, 12 years old through whatever.
How can you guarantee anything at 12? Yeah. Oh my God.
But he needs to see this could be me if I allow the fandom to happen, if I boast about being able to talk like Snake. You know what I mean?
And I think that I think his personality is not to do that, even though there is something there why he was sorted into Gryffindor. Maybe the bravery aspect of it, type of thing is there, that he is willing to face these things, even though he might be fearful, that he can face things because of something that happened when he was a baby.
Right.
And I think that the issue for Harry with Colin Creevey and then Ron making a joke of Colin and Ginny and then Lockhart is that Malfoy and Snape and others assume that Harry is like Lockhart.
Absolutely.
That he is eating up the fame, and the thing is, that's because they would.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely Malfoy, but the Snape thing is harder for me. I'm really, I can't wait for us to come back together and talk about Snape, because I've reread the books a lot, but not 6 and 7 as frequently as the first one. So I really need to work on some of my thoughts on Snape. But Malfoy for sure would eat it up. He would
yeah.
be Lockhart
Well-
with a mean streak if he could.
The reality is the whole Slytherin house probably would.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if they saw a way, an
you
angle.
too, Crystal.
Me. If they
I'm
saw a
teasing
way,
you.
I was looking, the way that they, see an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so that to them, that's how they would do it. Like, this
Yeah.
is an opportunity for me to get things, to get attention, to
Mhm.
get maybe even access.
Yeah.
Because I think that's another thing why Draco is so anti-Harry, is because Harry has access to Dumbledore.
Yeah.
And that really gets him. I don't think we see a lot in this book, but later on, you see that foundation building.
Yeah.
And you're like, WTF. Like, why can't I go do all these things?
And that's why he's always whining to his dad. And his dad is like, it's almost like he needs these resources from his dad, but his dad somehow thinks that it should be a natural ability as a Malfoy or something. Stop whining about this stuff, right? Like,
right. Well, because probably his dad had it easier.
Yeah.
During Hogwarts years that he was there.
Oh, could you imagine if we did Hogwarts with all the adults as students, like I would Arthur Weasley, Molly Weasley, Lucius, and everyone. That would be someone get on that.
Exactly, because there is a missing gap of like what happened.
Because we do get a little bit of like the Potters and this with Snape. Yes. But like, let's get a little bit more. And of course, we learn a little bit more about Hagrid, which will come up in a little bit. Yeah. But I want to know more about the past. So if the writing did anything for me, it wanted me to know more about the previous years and maybe not what we got with Fantastic Beasts. Like, that's interesting. Like,
interesting.
I want to know about I want to see Molly Weasley when she was young. I bet she was a badass witch. Right. With her red hair and get it, girl.
Oh, yeah. I think there's a whole kind of era of even Dumbledore. I mean, we learn more with the other, like, Fantastic Beasts and that type of thing.
And so the last person that we haven't talked about that is obsessed with Harry.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Is Tom Riddle. So we meet Tom Riddle. And how do we meet Tom Riddle? Somehow there's a diary.
Yep.
And Harry gets it, right?
Yeah.
And so he finds out that he can write in this diary that Ginny has had. And what it is you write in it and you're having a conversation with this boy that was at Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to read a little bit from the diary. So it says, "Hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle. How did you come by my diary?" It says, "Someone tried to flush it down a toilet." And so there are these moments of trying to figure out who opened the Chamber of Secrets, and they obviously think it's Draco. And so they meet in this bathroom that doesn't really work, and there's Moaning Myrtle, this ghost who's crying, and so it becomes like the space for Ron, Hermione, and it's like their hangout, with just some crying in the background. No, don't worry about it. Mind your business, I guess. And so someone tried to flush the diary down the toilet, and we learn later that it was Ginny. So, So then he waits, is lucky that I recorded my memories in some more lasting way than ink, but I always knew that there would be those who would not want this diary read. So Harry says, "What do you mean?" "I mean that this diary holds memories of terrible things. Things that were covered up, things that happened at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." And he's like, "Oh my God." Harry's like, "Oh, he's got the hot goss." Yeah. And like, are you not concerned about a magical diary? I mean, hello.
That has very scary things associated with it. Yeah.
So he's like, "What do you know about the Chamber of Secrets?" And so Tom Riddle says, "Of course I know about the Chamber of Secrets. In my day, they told us it was a legend that it did not exist, but this was a lie. In my 5th year, the chamber was open and the monster attacked several students, finally killing one. I caught the person who opened the chamber and he was expelled. But the headmaster, Professor Dippet, ashamed that such a thing had happened at Hogwarts, forbade me to tell the truth. A story was given out that the girl had died in a freak accident. They gave me a nice, shiny engraved trophy for my trouble and warned me to keep my mouth shut. But I knew it could happen again. The monster lived on, and the one who had the power to release it was not imprisoned." End quote. And so what we discover is that it was Hagrid who opened the Chamber of Secrets, and that he had a little spider buddy.
Yep. Little.
Disgusting.
Spider, yeah.
Well, at that time.
Right. Yep.
At that time, it was like just a little guy, Aragog, and he was in like a little cupboard.
Cupboard,
yeah, like a little cupboard. And so they thought the spider maybe was the monster, and Hagrid gets taken away to Azkaban.
Yeah.
They think he reopened the Chamber of Secrets, and then he sends Harry and Ron out into the forest.
Jeez.
Where the spider is as big as my house, as it feels like. And then there's all of his little babies who are the size of cars.
Right.
But toot toot, here comes a car to save them.
Yeah, thank goodness.
It's the flying car that they lost when they landed at Hogwarts. But what we find out is that Tom Riddle is in the Chamber of Secrets, and he is in fact Voldemort trying to lure in Harry.
Yes.
So Tom Riddle and Voldemort, why are you so obsessed? Like, that was his name, right?
Right.
Why are you so obsessed with Harry Potter?
Well.
That's a whole thing.
That's a whole thing. But well, it's interesting in this book too, because you have that fame element, and it just seems like there's the fame side with Harry, and then the people who are just like, I want you gone.
Yeah.
I want
Tom
you
Riddle
dead. Yeah.
Is
like,
at
all
the
these
top
people.
of that list.
And so they're trying to figure out how this is possible. Like, let me put Harry in very dangerous situations.
Yes.
And
exactly why Dobby stopped the mail.
Yes.
Closed down so they couldn't get to the train.
Right.
Did all these things to stop them because,
he knew somebody was
going to get lured with that diary somehow.
Yep.
And so what we discover, though, is that Lucius Malfoy puts the diary in Ginny's books when they have that scuffle in Diagon Alley. And she, unbeknownst to herself, opens the Chamber of Secrets. The keeper of Hogwarts, his cat is petrified. Yep. Colin Creevey is petrified.
Yeah.
And then Hermione and another student are petrified.
Yeah.
And so they have to shut down Quidditch. They're going to think about closing the school. Dumbledore is taken away and can't, take care of the school. And Hagrid is taken to Azkaban. And so what this leads up to is the big moment where, Hermione is petrified, but she had an idea of what was happening. And so they get that information, and that leads them to the bathroom, their little hangout, and to the crying ghost, Moaning Myrtle. And what we discover is she's the student.
I was going to say,
She's the student who died.
Yes.
The first time the Chamber of Secrets are open. And so she tells them what she saw. And this is what Hermione had. She had it in her hand. She had gone to the library, and here we go. So it says, of the many fearsome beasts and monsters that roam our land, there is none more curious or more deadly than the basilisk, known as the king of serpents. This snake, which may reach gigantic size and live many hundreds of years, oh good,
right,
is born from a chicken's egg, hatched beneath a toad. Its methods of killing are wondrous, for aside from its deadly and venomous fangs, the basilisk has a murderous stare, and all who are fixed with the beam of its eye shall suffer instant death. Spiders flee before the basilisk, which is follow the spiders.
All
no,
right.
thank
No,
you.
thank you.
For it's their mortal enemy, and the basilisk flees only from the crowing of the rooster, which is fatal to it.
Yeah.
So that's what they find, and they head off to find Moaning Myrtle. They know that it's a serpent. That's why people think Harry have opened it, because he has the parcel tongue, right? Yep. And that he's the heir of Slytherin.
Yep.
And so they get in there, and of course Lockhart is there to
just mess things up.
Yeah, mess things up. Of course,
yeah.
But he's gonna go in there and save the day and leave, Harry and Ron in there. And so the monster has taken Ginny in, and so they're going in, to save Ginny Weasley. And so, but in the flying car event,
yes,
Ron's wand is broken, and it's caused many things like him throwing up slugs, which is real nasty.
Yes.
And when Lockhart goes to charm Ron, he has the wand and it sends it back to Lockhart, and he can't remember anything, and he's like, where are we? This is magical.
Right.
Like, he just
What's my name?
He has no idea. No idea. So Ron is stuck with Lockhart because they get separated, and so Harry goes in, and that's when he meets Tom Riddle and discovers that it is Voldemort trying to come back and get him through any sort of magical means that he can.
Yep.
And so he has to fight this giant serpent.
Yep.
Which he is able to get out the eye. Like, they do a lot of close your eyes if there's any sudden movements, but until Harry can make some things happen, or
the Phoenix comes
and brings the sorting hat.
Yeah.
And Harry is able to pull out a sword out of the sorting hat, and the Phoenix does help with the eyes of the serpent, and he uses one of the fangs to destroy the diary and Tom Riddle, and Ginny's alive, and then of course the Phoenix flies them all out with Lockhart on the end being like,
this is great. Yeah.
So of course after this there's always some big event, and Harry saves the day.
Yes.
And then he has to immediately go to Dumbledore, and they have to do the rundown.
Yes. What happened?
What happened? And I think this is the moment when Dumbledore and Harry might become friends.
Yes, I think so.
And so he talks about loyalty that is shown during Chamber of Secrets, and he's like, Dumbledore's a magnificent wizard, and Dumbledore says to him, and this is on page 332, "First of all, Harry, I want to thank you. You must have shown me real loyalty down in the chamber. Nothing but that could have called Fox to you."
Right.
And so that was the Phoenix. And so that's one of the things is then they go in and they're talking about what was happening and things like that. But that loyalty, and I think the fact that there's backlash against Harry as the heir Slytherin, has Dumbledore protecting him. And it reminds him of his relationship with Hagrid.
Yes.
And that Dumbledore was really the only adult to fully support Hagrid when the Chamber of Secrets was opened.
Right.
Because he didn't, there wasn't intent and, that sort of thing. So I think this is the moment where we start to see the relationship grow with Dumbledore. He's maybe no longer just the headmaster, like that loyalty aspect, and saying that, there's some sort of connection, and this is sort of what saved the day, and that you were able to call for the Phoenix to come and bring you what you needed, which ended up being Godric Gryffindor's sword.
Right.
So,
well, I think it's also a part, the loyalty, absolutely. I also wonder with Dumbledore, he truly didn't know kind of Harry's intention, because in the chamber, I think there was an opportunity for Harry to go with Voldemort.
Gross.
Right.
I don't know. Tom Riddle seemed cool.
And
then he wasn't.
And then he wasn't. But there was that, because the Sorting Hat started it with what house he should be in. Yeah. And then it was like, well, how is he's an individual, Harry.
Yeah. He has free will.
How can you go and see, what side is he truly going to be? Yeah. And he was faced this first time kind of with Voldemort to be like, you can, come to the dark side if you will.
Join me. We have cookies here.
Right, yes. And he didn't. He was like, no, I know innately, like, this is not right. I'm not going to do that. And also I think that kind of reflects that anti-fame. Like, I don't want that either. Yeah. So here's Dumbledore being like, I see you. Yeah. And where your true intentions are. Yeah. And that kind of, I think, I agree, that opens the door for them to be more of that mentor, I say.
Yes. Which is a kind of friendship.
Exactly,
right?
Right. So that mentorship, that kind of trust you have to build with, like, you are on a certain side, which we talked about earlier in this podcast. Like, this book shows the two separate sides very clearly. Yeah. And you have to pick.
You're either pure blood or mud blood. Like, who do you support? Yeah. And people are still learning and things. I mean, a 11, 12, 13, 14.
Right.
They're tweens and teens. And so there's also developmentally things that are going on. And the Sorting Hat was like, you could choose.
You can choose.
But he already knew at that point, like, the stigma that is attached to Slytherin.
Right.
And maybe the stigma is there for a reason, right?
Well,
and that he does belong in Gryffindor because of the choices he makes.
And that's it. I think that it's not just, you still can do bad.
Yes.
And
yeah.
it doesn't matter, but he kind of was like, no, I kind of already see that this is the side I want to go. I was going to bring up Hagrid because I think there's a little bit with that friendship with Harry, Ron, and Hermione and Hagrid.
Yeah, when Ron is throwing up slugs and they go out to see him, like, what is going on?
Yeah. And I think Hagrid is kind of he was an easy target when he was in Hogwarts. That's one of the first things.
Because he's part giant and he loved all these monsters and creatures
animals.
and still does.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
But he is on it in my mind.
Yeah.
He's very knowledgeable. He's very caring, but you see a foundation, I think, starting with those three and Hagrid, and it becomes very important in their journey, in the series. And I forgot about that a little bit, that it kind of starts with not just, it doesn't start necessarily, but it grows more in book 2.
I would say like book 1 is definitely like setting up the entire world, and like Hagrid is the one that takes Harry as a baby to the Dursleys, so he has a connection there, and he's the one that gets him from the Dursleys to go to at least Diagon Alley and get all the things he needs before he goes to school. And so there is this like inherent connection,
right?
And then they kind of check in on each other in the first year, but now it's like, oh, we have plans to go see Hagrid, and then they go down to see him underneath the invisibility cloak, and that's when they come to take Dumbledore or like take Hagrid away, and that's when he's like gives them information because he knows that like what they might be capable of solving or doing, and so in a crisis situation, then he knows that they might be his only hope, or Hogwarts' only hope at that time. And that's when he's like, I would follow the like, he's just like, everyone else in the room is like, this is nonsense. But they're like, follow the spiders. And it's like, I would not follow the spiders. I'm sorry. That's the one. They have lots of legs. And oh my God, they're so big. So big. It just also reminds me of the Two Towers to the spider in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, and then the snake is so big too.
Yeah, it's like, everyone, can we just have normal sized creatures?
But the creatures brings up another thing. I actually kind of just thought about it is, we see even more relationship in terms of pets.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? The caring for certain pets, and that becomes another thing that you see throughout the series too.
Yeah.
But and Hagrid's one of the kind of forefathers of that.
Yes,
he's got all these.
Well, what I love about the creatures in this book is Aragog is like, you being friends with Hagrid is the reason why you're not dead yet, but I am not friends with you. So it also sort of illustrates like this level of trust with someone, and you're an outsider, so this is as much as I can give you, but that's it, because I don't know you, and this is the one that's taken care of me or been good to me my entire life, and I'm out in the woods where I can be away from the serpent because that's their mortal enemy. And so and that's why the Phoenix comes in to take care of the basilisk. So I think like Aragog is interesting because he's like, friendship is only so far. I have a hard boundary, and there's probably a good reason for it, because he got taken out of Hogwarts. Hagrid got taken out, and he saw what people could do, and Hagrid is the only one that's shown any sort of care.
Right.
And I think Hagrid doesn't always make the best decision as it comes to creatures, right?
He doesn't.
But I mean, do we all? Like, I mean, I got 3 of them, and this one, one next to me is like, I have to hold him by his collar.
Well, he's got this heart that you just you long for in people. Yeah. But then you're also like, protect yourself, buddy. Like, But it's interesting how the discovery more with like the different parts of the world of Harry Potter and the other creatures that are in the forest.
Yeah, and how Hagrid's like, he's like the connector.
Yeah.
Like, he's the bouncer at the club, so to speak. Like, you can't get in.
And he's like, I know this stuff, and I got these different relationships. And,
and I think it also, even though he might not make the best choices, like, as you see when he becomes the teacher, and then, like, there's, like, an incident with Draco, like, maybe the first day of class is not when you should introduce him to this creature in the Prisoner of Azkaban book, because that led to some issues. And maybe some things he didn't realize, and we all learn and make mistakes and things like that. But ultimately, I think Hagrid really is a sort of role model or an encourager. I don't want to say enabler because then it sounds like it's bad. The encourager of people making connections with creatures and animals. Yeah. And I fully appreciate that, and that is like throughout the whole series. And that resonates with me because I love animals so much. And now I'm like, if I had a student ask me in class the other day, if you could do something different, what would it be? And I would work with animals. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would have become a vet or anything like that, because the science and whatnot probably wouldn't have got me there. But even just like protecting, conservation, preservation. Right. So like Hagrid is that person. He's the one taking care of, not everyone always cares about, creatures. Sometimes animals are seen as less than and they get mistreated, and he's the person that cares for them. So like if you extrapolate it to like our world, they're the ones that are caring for the animals, being sure that animals are not on the endangered list, that they don't go extinct. Like thinking about Fiona the hippo when she was born premature, like nursing her. And that's why she's here today. Right. She's like the only hippo that was born premature that's lived. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. And you see also later on, like right now in book 2, it's kind of like the animals can kind of be bad almost.
Yeah, those spiders. Right. Jesus Christ.
And that snake.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Right. Sorry, I went for the spider.
So I don't know, but I get
they're both creepy.
They are.
I mean, I'm not going in no chamber through the bathroom. Oh, no. Like, come on. Moaning Myrtle warned me. I'm not going in there.
No. No, thank you.
I'm not going out into the forest.
No.
Not trying to get killed tonight.
I am studying with Hermione. Anyways.
Where's the library?
Yeah, that seems safe.
Sometimes, I guess. Yeah. She got petrified outside of it.
Yeah. But like, then you start to see like there's a use for some of these things. So I think it's interesting. And there's definitely that theme too of loyalty. Yeah. Throughout book 2.
Hagrid is super loyal. Yeah. And like, the loyalties where, like what we've been talking about, like what side are you on? Where do they lie? But also as one final thought on Hagrid is you start to wonder if like he started caring for animals and the creatures and so on and so forth because he wasn't able to make connections with people.
Oh, I think so.
And so I think so. Like that's something that is also can be really interesting is thinking about like, it's almost like Harry and Ron made like an automatic connection. Right. And it took a little bit longer with Hermione. Mm-hmm. And I think that, some people are really good at making friends and some people struggle with that. Yep. And Hagrid has always had friends in those animals and beasts and so on. And he's always had that friend in Dumbledore. And I think we see here, as you noted, this is when he has those friends, and especially Harry, but also Ron and Hermione. Right. Yeah. And so what that means is that we got a whole lot of friendship, but we're starting to see that separation and that the enemies and the things that become evil and dangerous are becoming more and more clear and prevalent and maybe more frequent, and that maybe Harry should listen to Dobby, but at the same time, maybe Harry is the one that they needed to because he was the one being lured, so he's the one that can be sure none of his classmates would be hurt. Right. But of course, he does save Ginny. He takes care of Tom Riddle. Deuces, you're out. And he did have help with Ron getting in there and dealing. He had to deal with Lockhart, so maybe Ron had the worst deal. And then Hermione found the information in the library, but then she was petrified. And what was interesting is like none of those students had been killed because they were in the cat because they all saw it through something, a mirror, a camera, water, those sorts of things. So luckily that was the case, and Hermione was able to solve that issue. But then she was petrified. But then, of course, like there is, especially at the beginning here, season 1, season 2. I wish it was can we get a Netflix series?
Yes.
I got so many ideas, Netflix.
Yes.
But book 1, book 2, that there's like, Gryffindor wins House Cup.
Right.
Their exams are canceled.
Yes.
It's another successful year at Hogwarts. And then the cherry on top. The cherry on top is that Dumbledore's reinstated, much to Lucius's dismay.
Yep.
And that's when we discover that Dobby is, in fact, the house elf for the Malfoys.
Yes.
And so Harry is able to trick the elder Malfoy by returning that diary that he snuck into Ginny's cauldron. And what we discover is that Harry puts a sock in the diary.
Yes.
And Lucius basically throws or, does something, Dobby gets the diary with the sock in it. And that's how you free a house elf. The master has to offer a piece of clothing.
Yeah.
And Harry, who is 12, tricks this evil man into freeing his house elf. And I just think that's the cherry on top here. And that's when I would say Harry has made a new friend, and Dobby is so excited now that this is two-sided and not maybe that one-sided friendship that it might have been before.
Yeah. Well, and you also start to realize that the Malfoys had something to do, like, obviously they were talking about.
They had a hand in being sure that this young girl would open the Chamber of Secrets. Right. And that would become an issue in the school, and that, Harry would eventually end up there. And Dobby overheard it, but not Mr. Harry Potter.
Right.
Dobby has to warn him. I love how he always talks in third person.
Yes.
So that is the Chamber of Secrets. What I think that ultimately says, too, is that the crap's about to hit the fan, so to speak, because the lines are starting to be drawn.
Correct.
And so now it's intensifying. So I'm excited to read it with a different lens. Like I read it before for enjoyment, but now I'm reading it specifically for friendship or unfriendship or frenemies or enemies or whatever the case is. And so it takes on a whole different meaning. And so, so Prisoner of Azkaban is up next. It will come out in the first week of November. Ooh. And Rachel Bennick will be the guest on that episode. So
it's such a perfect time for Harry Potter, I have to say.
Oh, yeah. Fall. It's October 1 here as we record this on our second try. And it's that fall time, and it's perfect. Like, I just want to do like a Harry Potter marathon with some cozy butterbeer.
Well, right? Yeah. I just love too that there's always a like Christmas holiday.
Yes.
And every like
there's Halloween, there's all that. Yeah.
And so it's just nice leading up to I started actually watching the movies again.
Yes.
Because I like the movies too. Yeah. But it's just a great time.
Yeah.
There's so many good things. And looking at it from the scope of just friendship is I think pretty unique. Yeah. And it's threaded throughout the series just perfectly. You know?
And my friend Adri, who is one of the hosts of Accio Politics, they do each chapter an episode, and so they focus on the politics of it. So then it's like you can focus on this in so many different ways, and I think again it's another layer of people resonate with it in a different way. Right. And so Adri will be back for a later episode. She's been on the podcast before. But Crystal, thanks so much to talk about me. I'm gonna have you back for so many things that people might be like, so is Crystal your co-host now? And I'll be like, yes. No, Crystal's like, no, I don't have time for that.
I love it. I love doing this.
No, but I'm like, I want to hear your theories about Snape. I want to talk to you about cults. I want to talk to you about so many things. So please look
I think people think I'm going to be like this dark like side.
Yes, she is.
I am. It's my secret. No, it's my chamber. No.
Yeah, your chamber of secrets. What's inside your chamber of secrets?
Only so many people know. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I love all of that, and I can't wait to be back.
Yeah, so... Well, and it hopefully will be soon because I want to hear your Snape theories. Yes. So if you have any thoughts about our coverage of Chamber of Secrets, if you want to say what's in your Chamber of Secrets, what house you would put some celebrities, who your cheat celebrity is, what you think about Aragog, that goddamn spider.
Dobby.
Fame. Colin Creevy.
Right.
We want to know about it. You can find me at Friends with Alysa on Gmail, the web, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and then on Twitter, it's Friends W Alysa, so please let me know. And so until next time, think about how Harry needed friends when everyone thought he was the heir of Slytherin, because who would you be without your friends? Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com, and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. Now, friends, check out this recommended podcast that you must get in your ear holes immediately.